hello again. Thanks for tuning into my channel. I appreciate it. My name is Don Fast, and this series is entitled No Marriages in Heaven. And so what I'm going to try to do each time I start one of these is just kind of give some of the basics about what the channel is going to be about. And and when I say we, I'm talking about my wife Lori and son Sammy. We're kind of a team. They're my prayer team, and they help me think through what we need to do with our little YouTube channel here. So that's when I say we, I'm talking about Lori and Sammy. But we are focused on Christian husbands who are either struggling are separated or divorced in their marriages. And so our goal is to either improve or restore those marriages. I'm also going to say, I'm also going to say pretty much every one of these talks is that Lori and I were divorced for 7 years. And God very graciously brought us back in remarriage. And it's been over 15 years now that we've been together. And so what I want to do is share some of the principles that God showed me and placed in me that He brought Lori and I back together. What we're going to do is we're going to cover quite a few of the basics of Christian marriage from a biblical perspective. And then what we're also going to be doing is covering what I believe are the two main causes for marital discord and divorce. And then, of course, how to address them. Recently, about a year and a half ago, got a book published, and it's Just Love Her. And I think it's on Amazon. But it focuses on the first of what I believe of the two main causes of divorce, marital idolatry. The entire book is don't worship her, just love her. And so that's the first one. And just found out from the publishers today that they finished the final draft and they're moving forward on publishing the second book, which is going to focus on the second cause, which is Genesis 3. And so this book is going to identify the negative repercussions on marriages from Genesis 3 and then how to deal with them. And that book is entitled, Is It God's Good Plan to Crush and Grieve You? There we go. Today, what we're going to talk about is something that's probably it's going to come across a little bit weird, but hopefully by the time this is done, it'll make sense. And this is a foundational point that you're going to need either in a difficult, or if you're already separated, or even if you're divorced, you're going to need this in order to either improve or restore your marriage. And here it is. We need to, or I'm going to be more direct, you're going to need to experience God's love in order to, first of all, just live life the way God intended. And then next, in order to either improve your relationship with your wife or restore your marriage, the number one thing you're going to need to do is experience God's love, Jesus' love. The reason I say this is too many Christians, and what I would encourage you to do is read some of A.W. Tozer's work. He kind of made this clear for me. Too many Christians, me included, we walk around in kind of what I call like a Melba toast Christianity. It's dry, it's hard, kind of like the Ezekiel, I think it's Ezekiel 16, dry bones. We think if we go to church, if we put money in the plate, if we read our Bible every once in a while, etc., that's Christianity. It's not. Christianity is a love affair with Jesus Christ. And I'm going to add God our Father to that. It's a love affair. It's a blown awayness. It's when we think through what we're going to talk about today and realize how much he loves us, just goosebumps on the back of our neck, up our back, our head, our legs. We're blown away by the fact that he loves us, he's forgiven us, and even knowing everything about us, he still loves us. That's what's being talked about here, and that's what we're going to need in order to get our relationship back with our wife. Key principle. Our primary love relationship is with God and Jesus, not our wife. And again, that's why this book, I'm probably going to keep promoting this book, but that's why that book is important, and that's why this principle is important. Too many of us worship the ground she walks on instead of worshiping God, and it gets us in huge trouble. Idols or smaller than God things or lowercase little g gods always work until they don't, but eventually they always don't. And if we were worshiping our wife and believing she was going to meet all of our relational and spiritual needs, eventually it's going to blow up on us. And it'll put too much pressure on her, and the marriage goes sideways. And so, again, I'm going to repeat this principle. Our primary love relationship is with God and Jesus, not our wife. So we're going to need to experience his love in order to establish, maintain, and keep that love affair with Jesus and God going. I'm just going to read this. We're going to need to experience his love in order to have the love we're going to need in order to keep loving her when she's not loving us. The first priority for this love is to reciprocate, to give it back, to interact with it with Jesus and God. The second purpose, at least for our purposes here, is to be able to give worthwhile, significant love to our wife when she's possibly hating us, when she can't stand us. And the principle I want to throw out from that is you can't give what you don't have. Or a little more positive, we give what we've been given. You can't give what you don't have. If I ask you for a glass of water and you don't have one, you can't give me a glass of water. We give what we've been given. Many of us, the love that we think we have to share really isn't love. It's a performance-oriented reward. If you do for me what I'm hoping or demanding you'll do for me, then I will return love to you. That's actually not love. It's like prostitution. It's not love. Many of us in our families, the love we received came from our performance. If you get all A's on your report card, you're a good kid, and I'll say I love you. If you get first place in whatever, I'll pat you on the back and say, wow, I'm proud of you. But see, that's not love. That's a payment. That's a paycheck. Real love has to come in gift form only. Real love has to come and be given whether I do it right or not. Now, why is this important? Because we can only give what we've been given. And in the context of restoring marriages, when she's not performing, when she's not doing we'll say the phrase, what have you done for me lately? Well, see, then, if the only love that we've been given is performance-oriented, I got this because I did this, I won't have any love to give to her because she's not doing anything anymore. She's actually anti-doing it. Let me tell a story. when Lori and I were divorced, at least initially, we went to a church program that it was called 10 Great Dates. And they were supposed to, you had these things you work through, and it was supposed to like get your marriage back together. Well, it didn't work, primarily because I was a jerk and I was arrogant. And every time we'd go on it, I would just point out Lori's faults. And she would end up crying, getting angry, and calling her mother and say, "Come and get me," because I would usually drive, and she didn't even want to be driven home. She goes, "My mom will come and get me." And I remember her saying numerous times, "I will never love you again. I will never love you again." Well, number one, that hurts. It gives a huge sense of hopelessness and despair. And anytime I talk about Lori when we were divorced, it was my fault, not hers. I was the jerk. I was the mean guy. I was cruel. I said horrible things. She was trying to make things work, but I was still being a jerk. And when she said, "I will never love you again," it took years of God working on me and showing me his love and what we're going to talk about today. And you're going to need this in order to get your marriage back. Can't give what we don't have. We give what we've been given. So the starting point, though, of having this love to give will be our experiencing the love that God has given us. This principle is true of those people who have Jesus Christ living inside of them and those who don't. What I mean by those who have Jesus Christ living inside of them, church people would say that you're a Christian. Romans 8 and Galatians 3, basically, specifically Romans 8, it just says, if Jesus Christ, if the Holy Spirit doesn't live inside of you, you're not a Christian. You're not born again. You're not a true disciple of Jesus. And Revelation says that when Jesus Christ comes inside of us, we are given what's called a first love. It's this blown awayness. It's this, oh my goodness. When I became a Christian back in 1977, when Jesus Christ came inside of me, my phrase was, it's like I got, it was like a one of those, I don't know if you remember, like a Claritin Clear commercial. They used to have these old commercials where this hand would go up and it'd pull this film off of the scene on the television, and everything got clear. That's what happened to me. It's like I felt loved for the first time in my life when Jesus Christ came inside of me. That's what's being talked about here, and that's what's going to be needed. It will be true if you don't have Jesus Christ living inside of you. You're going to need to experience what we're going to talk about in regards to sin. And if he lives inside of you, you're still going to need him exposing our sin. Okay. So it's where God starts in regards to initiating a relationship with him. It's also where he starts in getting our relationship back on track with him. Okay. Here's another principle. Everything in the Christian life revolves around our relationship with Jesus. Everything in life revolves around our relationship with Jesus. And those people who don't have Jesus just fill their lives up with people, places, positions, possessions, things that they think will make them feel alive, but they're still walking around dead. And that's why we have so much substance use. That's why we have so many, crazy sexual things going on right now, because people are running around trying to make themselves feel alive, and they still feel dead. And so everything in life revolves around our relationship with Jesus. Paraphrasing Proverbs 16:7, when our relationship with God and Jesus is right, he makes even our enemies be at peace with us. When our relationship with God and Jesus is right, he makes even our enemies be at peace with us. When you're in the middle of a difficult marriage, separated, obviously divorced, many times your wife is going to come across as an enemy. Now, she's not. What we're going to see later, much more like a wayward sheep than like a defiant enemy. But when our relationship is right with Jesus, he makes even our enemies be at peace with us. But here's the deal. Right relationship with Jesus, the Bible calls that being righteous. What we tell our son Sammy is we have a best friend relationship with Jesus. We can now look at him eye to eye. In the Old Testament, no one could see God's face. He was too holy. But when we have a right or righteous relationship with God, we can now look him in the eyes because Jesus says he calls us friends. God says that we're righteous. It's many places in the Bible, but I'm just going to choose one passage, Romans 5, 1 and 2. Therefore, since we have been made right or best friends in God's sight by faith, we have peace with God because of what Jesus Christ our Lord has done for us. Because of our faith, Christ has brought us into this place of undeserved privilege. You could stick the word grace in there. Brought us into this place of grace where we now stand, and we confidently and joyfully look forward to sharing God's glory. Grace can be defined as what God has done for us. So you could just say, done for me. That's grace. Faith is just trusting in what has been done for us. Ephesians 2:8-9 says, "For by grace have you been saved through faith, and that not of yourselves, it's a gift of God, not as a result of works, lest any man should boast." So the way we become best friends with God and Jesus is what Jesus Christ did for us on the cross. Done for us, did for us on the cross. That's grace. And then by faith, we trust that. And even in this Ephesians, you can look on it, if you want, look up the verse on your own, Ephesians 2:8-9. The verse even says that he gives us the faith to believe in him. The only thing we bring into our relationship with Jesus is the sin it took for him to die on the cross to take care of that sin. He provides everything else. He provides the sacrifice. He provides the faith to believe in the sacrifice. So our righteousness is not something that we can do, but rather what he has done for us by his grace and the faith he gives us to trust and believe what he did for us. Okay? So let's keep going. Along with his gifted right relationship or best friend relationship, we can ask him to give us a heart to desperately want to have this relationship he's made available to us. First for him and then for our wife. When we experience this blown awayness by the fact that he's done all this for us and given us this right relationship with him, we can use that as kind of surf that relational and spiritual wave and say, God, I want to know you more. I want to experience you. I want to know you. Okay? First of all, because that's how life works, and that's when life gets great. Next, we're going to need it when it comes to attempting to restore our marriage. So, getting back to addressing our sin thing, the first place to start in getting our relationship with Jesus back to where he wants it to be and we need it to be will come as he brings us face to face with our sin. This principle can be found in the book of Luke. That's one of the first books in the New Testament, and it's Luke 7:31-50. And I'm not going to go through all the details. It's a wonderful story that Jesus told. But what I want to focus on in the passage is the sinful or immoral woman. This woman had done such, the passage doesn't say what she did, but it does say that she was identified as the sinful or immoral woman. She had done enough bad things over a long enough period of time that when she walked down the street, people go, oh, there's that sinful woman. Oh, there's that immoral woman. And so here's this woman who knows that she was a sinful woman. And despite her reputation, she walks into a hostile environment and told Jesus through her actions that she loved him and was unbelievably, extravagantly grateful that he loved and forgave her. She experienced God's love and forgiveness. And as a byproduct of that, she now had extravagant love to give him. We're going to look at it in a second. When I say hostile environment, she was walking into Pharisees. That's like a first century pastor type person named Simon. And he was arrogant, performance oriented, thought he was better than everybody else. He thought he was even better than Jesus, let alone, he just pointed out that woman is a sinful woman. That's how arrogant he was. He had no grace, no compassion whatsoever. And she walked into that environment and she showed Jesus her love and gratitude in the most extravagant way she could. She gave a gift. And the gift she gave was two things. One, an unbelievably expensive, some have even said priceless, bottle of perfume and her tears. This bottle of perfume, some have said, could have cost a year's wages. I don't know how much money you make, but pile that up and go give it as an offering to church. That's what this lady did. A year's or more wages. Not only that, she humbled herself, and I don't think humbling, because I don't think it was even an issue. She walked into this hostile environment, tears in her eyes, breaking this bottle of perfume on Jesus, and then wiping it with her hair. She didn't care what anybody. She was in love. She didn't care. She was in love. She was extravagantly in love. And no matter the difficulties, no matter the hostile environment, she gave this love because of what Jesus had given her. And this is what we're going to need in regards to restoring our marriage. And here's the basic principle from verse 47. The one who has been forgiven much loves much. Let's put it another way. Any Christian who authentically realizes that they've been forgiven a truckload of sin will have a truckload of love to give in return. And guys who are listening, you're going to need this in order to either improve, restore, or get back your marriage. Why? Because if you're listening to this, you've probably already experienced it. You're not getting anything from her. You're actually getting anti-love from her. Yours might be, I will never love you again. I can't stand you. She might even be going out with another guy. You're going to need this love in order to restore your marriage. So, when we allow, don't run from by blaming her or others or justifying, well, I wouldn't have done this if you didn't do this. If we stay away from that stuff and just allow God to show us what horrible, terrible sinners we are, to that same degree, he'll give us the ability to extravagantly first love him and then hopefully our wife, because we authentically realize that he has extravagantly forgiven us. See, this is why it's so important not to run from, and here it is, straight up, this is an unbelievably painful process. It really hurts to have our sin exposed to us. So many times we deflect by, well, I'm not as bad as this guy. I'm not as bad as her. She did this. It's only reasonable that I did this. See, we deflect so many times. But if we can ask God to give us the ability just to stay in and marinate in the pain of him exposing our sin, when we say, oh God, I'm a horrible sinner, please forgive me. And when he does that, please check out 1 John 1:9. When we confess our sins, he's faithful and just to forgive us our sins and to cleanse us from all unrighteousness. When he does that, he also gives this blown away, what I call 10:10 life. It's John 10:10. He came that we might have life and have it to the full, have it abundantly. It's this free, energized, full of life experience that comes from this principle of God exposing our sin and then us experiencing total forgiveness for all these horrible sins. And then with that, we have this new freedom and energy in life, but also, and here it is in regards to restoring our marriages, the ability to extravagantly love our wife. Jesus gives another story in this same chapter of Luke 7, verses 41 to 43. And it's the story of two men who both had debts they couldn't pay off. One owed 50 pieces of silver, the other 500. I don't know what, I guess in today's economy, the 50 pieces of silver I think is around $1,500 and 500 is around 15,000. Whether it was 1,500 to 15,000 back then, that would have been a whole lot of money. And Jesus tells the story that both of these guys, the debt holder, forgave both these guys. So then Jesus asks the real simple question, who do you suppose loved the debt forgiver more after that? And the obvious answer that Simon, the arrogant finger pointer, said is the one who got the larger debt canceled. This is why God starts with exposing our sin in regards to, first of all, our relationship with him, and then in giving us the ability to either improve or restore our marriage, is as we see that we had our sin debt forgiven, this huge debt that we couldn't pay, we now have something to give. Remember, we give what we've been given. We now have something to give. It is gift form only, completely forgiven, no performance necessary, love. First reciprocated to Jesus and God, next to our wife. And as we see that he paid that debt in full for us, we've now been given what we didn't have and couldn't produce, forgiveness and love on our own. And again, we can then return that to God and Jesus and then our wife. To the degree we recognize that we are horrible sinners and realize that Jesus forgave those horrible sins, we now have what it takes to extravagantly, first of all, love Jesus and like the sinful woman, love Jesus, and then the goal hopefully will be to love our wife. This is how God uses the exposure of our sin in our life to develop extravagant love for him and then hopefully for our wife as well, no matter the marital circumstances. So I think that's it for today. Thanks so much for listening. Coming soon, I think I put it in the last video, but we're working on a website. It's called hopeforhusbands.com. Hopeforhusbands.com. We're going to have I'm going to be listing the books that God has been publishing, and we're going to be creating pamphlets on just simple, clear ways to work through your difficult marriage. And then I'm also going to be listing a number of the books that have been helpful for me personally, but that I've used in my counseling for the last 35 years. So again, thanks for listening, and hopefully we'll see you next time.